The first thing Ethan Harrison noticed was the subtle change in the rhythm of footsteps behind him, a slight difference he could not ignore, sending a sudden shiver down his spine as he lifted his eyes from the glowing message on his phone. The evening crowd filled the old city square, a sunlit town nestled between hills and the sea, where life moved slowly and strangers passed one another without care. Yet at that moment, the air seemed to hold its breath. His daughters were not walking cautiously beside their caretaker. They were running. They did not stumble, nor did they reach out for safety, nor did they call for help. They ran with a strange, agile confidence Ethan had never seen in the 6 years since their birth. Their coats fluttered behind them as they navigated the cobblestones, avoiding people and obstacles with instinctive precision, passing a street violinist's box, weaving around a child chasing pigeons, and curving smoothly toward an elderly woman sitting at the fountain's edge. The caretaker shouted, her voice breaking with panic, "Stop, please!" Ethan's heart pounded violently in his chest as he called their names, his voice echoing in the square in vain. They did not slow down or hesitate, and when they reached the woman with silver hair and worn clothes, they leapt straight into her open arms, as if this was the place they had always belonged. "Grandma," they said together, their voices bright with certainty and joy. The word hit Ethan like a blow, stopping him in his tracks, his mind unable to process what his eyes were seeing. His daughters had been diagnosed blind since childhood, their world shaped only by sound and touch, yet here they were, clinging to a stranger, faces lifted, eyes focused, breathing in her presence with calm recognition. The woman wrapped her arms around them with a tenderness that twisted something deep inside Ethan. When he finally found his voice, it trembled as fear and disbelief wrestled for control. "Please step away from my children. Who are you?" he said, trying to steady his tone. The woman lifted her gaze slowly, and there was no fear or defense in her face, only a quiet sorrow that felt painfully familiar. "They found me," she said gently. "I did not call them." One of the girls turned to Ethan with precision, holding his breath captive. "Daddy, why didn't you tell us she was here?" Ethan stared at her, speechless, for she did not guess his position nor respond to any sound, but looked at him directly with eyes that should not have been able to see. "You can't see," he whispered hoarsely. "We can see, when she is here," another answered calmly. The third reached out and traced the old woman's cheek with careful tenderness, following lines she could not have known. "She smells like Mama, like the soap she used at night," she said. The square faded around them, and Ethan's world shrank to the impossible reality before him, while the caretaker stood stiffly nearby, without explanation, for there was no logical explanation. That evening the house felt different. The girls spoke without pause, and Ethan listened from the doorway, their voices full of wonder and excitement as they described the colors of the sky, the sparkle of the fountain, the movement of people and birds, the softness of the woman's shawl. Each word weighed on his chest as he realized they were not imagining these details. They remembered them clearly. Finally, he asked, his voice tight as he leaned against the doorframe, "How do you know these things?" "We saw them," one replied simply. "You've never seen before," he said, his certainty eroding with every breath. "Not before her. She taught us how to open our eyes," another said. Sleep did not come that night. Ethan sat alone in his study, holding a photo of his late wife, Sophia, taken years before, when laughter came easily and fear had not yet learned to dwell in their home. She had believed in intuition and kindness, and in things that could not always be measured, and as grief poured over him, he wondered if his insistence on certainty and control had blinded him in ways darker than night. The next day he returned to the square. The woman was there, seated in the same spot, as if she had known he would come. As he approached, she looked at him with patient eyes, not accusing, not demanding. "You want the truth," she said softly. They sat together on the cold stone steps, the city's sounds continuing around them as she told him her story piece by piece, revealing that her name was Lila Morgan and that years ago she had been forced to give up her daughter under circumstances shaped by fear and deception, leaving her to believe the child was lost forever. That child was Sophia, she said, her voice trembling but steady. Your wife was my daughter. Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him as faded documents and photographs were placed in his trembling hands, each one erasing another layer of the certainty he had built his life upon. The resemblance was undeniable, and the truth could not be denied. Lila explained how she had been removed, how lies had been carefully planted and repeated, and how another woman had inserted herself into Sophia's life under the guise of guidance and support, while secretly controlling access to information, medical care, and trust. Ethan recoiled at the realization, finally understanding who that woman had been, a person close to the family long after Sophia's death, insisting the girls needed strict supervision and heavy treatments, encouraging dependence under the name of protection. Confrontation was inevitable. When Ethan finally faced her, she did not deny it. There was no point. Her voice was cold and calculated. You would not have survived without me. 3 disabled children and a broken man cannot retain custody for long, she said. Ethan's hands shook with suppressed anger. You made them believe they were blind. I made them need me. That was enough, she replied. Investigations that followed revealed altered medical records, unauthorized prescriptions, and disguised psychological conditioning. Specialists confirmed Ethan's worst fears. His daughters had always been capable of seeing. What had been lost was trust, freedom, and time. Healing did not come quickly, but it came steadily. Lila became a gentle, consistent presence in their lives, not imposing affection nor demanding acknowledgement, merely existing with patience. Over time, the girls grew stronger and more confident, their world expanding as therapy helped restore what had been taken. One afternoon, one of them looked at Ethan and smiled. You seem kind, just like Mama described. Ethan wept openly, unashamed of the weight of his heart, for love had returned to his home in a new, unexpected form. Years later, the experience was no longer just a painful memory, but the seed of a new meaning in life. Ethan transformed it into a living mission, opening a center for children who had suffered psychological harm, a place where voices were gentle, doors remained open, bathed in warm colors, wide windows, and small gardens, teaching children that the world is not a perpetual trap. In the center, treatment was replaced with safety, and fear with trust, step by step. Layla became the quiet spirit of the place. She did not seek attention nor gratitude, sitting with children, listening more than speaking, knowing when to place a hand on a small shoulder and when to let silence work. Her wisdom, born of old loss, became a guiding light for others. Over time, her presence became a sign of reassurance for families burdened with questions, guilt, and confusion. On the day of the center's opening, the hall was filled with parents and children, some carrying untold stories, others clinging to a final hope. Ethan stood beside his daughters, now older, their innocence unchanged. Their voices were steady and clear as they shared a truth that reshaped their lives. Not an accusation, not a complaint, but a testament to resilience. We learned to fear, one said, pausing as if to hear the echo of the phrase in the room, then added more quietly, then we learned to see. It was not sight alone that they spoke of, but seeing themselves, the truth and the world as it was, without imposed masks or hidden limits. Ethan listened, understanding that every hard step, every sleepless night, every doubt had finally found its meaning. Layla watched from the front row, tears glistening but not falling, and Ethan realized in that moment that families are built not just by blood or circumstance, but by courage to speak the truth, by honesty when admission is painful, and by readiness to face what has long been hidden rather than flee. At the end of the day, they returned home, to the house that had once been a stage for heavy silence and unspoken fear, slowly learning safety as the body relearns to breathe after long suffocation. Steps softened in the halls, voices quieted, and only a gentle warmth flowed through the walls, like a newly written memory. That night, as Ethan tucked his daughters into bed, turning off the small lamp and gently pulling the covers, as he always did, one whispered in a voice warm as reassurance, "Daddy, everything is clear now." He paused, as if time had granted him the moment to grasp the full meaning. Looking at their calm faces, their steady breathing, the room filled with a peace he had never known. He realized the clarity they spoke of was not just sight for tomorrow, but freedom from yesterday, reconciliation with the self, and a beginning untouched by fear. He bent and kissed her forehead gently, feeling his heart fill in a new way, not fleeting joy nor forgetting of pain, but the fullness of a man finally understanding that the past was no longer a prison where suffering repeats, and that wounds, however enduring, can become wisdom. He understood that the future is not born perfect, but forged with honesty, acknowledgement, and the courage to open one's eyes after long closure. He turned off the light, closed the door quietly, and walked down the hall, knowing that tomorrow would not be free of challenges, but it would be clear, reachable, and open to a life worth living.